Or joining me right now is Cindy Bai. She is a professor at Southern Illinois University, teaches law on immigration and various others courses. She's a past chair and of the International Immigration Law Section Council of the Illinois Bar Association, and also served on the Illinois Task Force on Human Trafficking, and is also a member of the Illinois Advisory Committee to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. And you also been involved in, I guess, as far as human trafficking, as far as the laws dealing with that. So appreciate you talking with us, Cindy. We've got a lot to unpack. I guess let's kind of start what happened, I believe, yesterday. And this just really came to my attention, was concerning DACA. So we had an appeals court in New Orleans, I believe, that basically said that the Obama administration's DACA implementation was illegal under the immigration law, but it doesn't sound like they're going to do anything. They're going to let, I guess, the existing participants or existing ones who have signed up to continue on. Can you kind of enlighten us a little bit on how that's going to work, or what's your knowledge of this?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Yes, the appeals court has said that the president doesn't have the power by himself to enact a program like DACA. It really depends on prosecutorial discretion, and normally that's exercised in more individual cases. But with the DACA program, the Obama administration decided to essentially create a class of persons. These are children who were brought to the United States by their parents when they were minors, and who then completed high school here and went on to college or to military or different things like that, to allow them to stay without fear of deportation and to allow them to work and go to school. And that was an exercise of prosecutorial discretion by the Immigration Service under the Obama administration, and has been continued, but it was done on a group basis instead of an individual basis. And so the court has said that's not really what prosecutorial discretion is about. If you're going to create a program that's really better for legislative action by Congress than having the executive branch operate unilaterally.
Yeah, is there an appetite within Congress to, I guess, to allow the DACA program to continue, or what's your thoughts on that?
Many polls have shown overwhelming support for the students or young people who are part of the DACA program, but Congress wasn't forced to act while this program was in place through the executive branch. This type of ruling, if it continues, may force Congress to actually take some action to give some kind of permanent relief to these young people.
Okay. Well, the other headline, of course, has been the two governors, Texas and more recently Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis, I guess, paid, like the New York Times had a pretty in-depth article, paid $1.5 million. That was the charter flights to basically fly nearly 50 immigrants waiting for asylum, fly them from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. And so that's the big headline right there. So you've got this kind of this dueling, who can get rid of all the immigrants faster, is it Texas or Florida? And I guess let's kind of focus on what Governor DeSantis did as we kind of dig into this. I mean, he used funds, I guess that was designated. There was $12 million designated for immigration there in Florida, but he ended up, spending well over $1 million, maybe, close to $2 million to basically fly immigrants from Texas. So, I mean, from your viewpoint, is this going to be legal, or, I mean, how is he able to do this? And he took full credit for it.
Yes. So in the immigration law, there isn't anything that says that you cannot move immigrants from one state to another, but normally it would be the federal government that would do that. Under our constitutional system, immigration policy is really committed to the federal government. I am sympathetic to the states that have many of these immigrants living there and who are trying to provide resources for them. That is a burden on some of their social service systems. And I think they're obviously trying to make a point to the federal government that you're not doing what you're supposed to do under the law and providing for these mostly asylum seekers, as I understand it. So they've already been processed by the Immigration Service. They've passed a sort of initial interview process where they've been found to have credible asylum claims to stay in the country, but there's further processing that has to be done to confirm that. What is more problematic is the way that it was done. There has been a class action lawsuit filed by some of the asylum seekers who were sent to Martha's Vineyard. They allege that they were lured there by falsehoods and misrepresentations in violation of the Fourth Amendment and the 14th Amendment to the US Constitution. It could be a case of false imprisonment, if they were brought somewhere under false pretenses and then not allowed to sort of leave at their own volition, immediately. So we shall see how that litigation proceeds. But it's the manner in which it was carried out. It would certainly be a much better policy if the states and the federal government could get together and work out a mutually agreeable solution to perhaps bring these immigrants to places where they have friends or families or communities that could be supportive, and it was orderly and done with full knowledge rather than under falsehoods.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of reporting. Just today, the Boston Globe was putting out a report that the mysterious Perla, I believe, is Huerta. Perla Huerta, I believe, is the name of the woman who was organizing this this flight in San Antonio. So the Bexar County law enforcement, Bexar County Sheriff's Department, I believe, is investigating this now. This Perla, I believe, is a former military, former person who worked in military intelligence, is reporting, and she was going out and basically handing out handing out clothing and $10 McDonald's cards, and just to gather these asylum seekers. I mean, it seems like they traveled thousands of miles. A lot of these are not. They're from Venezuela, I believe, is where most are from. I mean, they traveled thousands of miles only to get here, and to get a lousy $10 McDonald's card and get shipped up to Martha's Vineyard. And all for basically, it's looks like a political stunt. I mean, there's obviously got to be better ways to deal with this, right?
Yeah, as I said, it would be much better if the states could get together and they could each step up and say, we'll take, so many thousand immigrants, and particularly if they could take them in states that are connections for those immigrants, where they have families, friends, other support systems in place. And then the burden could be shared. And as you say, these people were fleeing persecution in their home country. Everything I've read suggests that, the majority are Venezuelans, but there's also a large number of Cubans involved who are also claiming persecution at home. And they wouldn't be here and they wouldn't have been released from custody if they hadn't passed those initial credible fear interviews. So they all have non-frivolous claims and legitimate reasons why they're fleeing and why they're in the United States. And
so these are asylum seekers who are already in the court process, I guess.
Yes, indeed, yes. And so it'd be great if we gave them a better welcome than what they have received so far.
Yeah, I guess if you have to, there's a lot of bipartisan support for what is happening in Ukraine. We're putting in billions of dollars into that, and there's bipartisan support, and there's a lot of war refugees involved in that. What is the difference between what is going on there versus what is going on our own southern border? Basically, it seems, has the Biden administration been too silent or not really, owning what is going on, or what is your view on that?
So you're right. We have provided a lot of support to Ukraine. Certainly other European nations have stepped up and taken in most of the Ukrainians who have fled the war. My understanding is the United States committed to take up to 100,000, and we've taken quite a few. I don't know if we reached that 100,000. Similar to the Afghans, after the military withdrawal from Afghanistan, we took about 80,000 Afghans in. I think part of the problem is that our refugee systems here in the United States were not prepared They had been underfunded and understaffed during the previous administration, and they weren't really ready for that kind of fast influx of people. And then you add on top of that the people coming from Central and South America. And yes, I think there has been a difference in treatment. I think that there was a sense of responsibility for the US presence in Afghanistan and the withdrawal. And so there was a sense that we needed to help our partners in Afghanistan. With Ukraine, I think because Russia has long been seen as a potential threat to the United States and expansionist aims in Europe, we're concerned about the global ramifications of what's happening there. Whereas with Central and South America, it seems to be more of an ongoing perennial issue where we have a variety of regimes that are repressive to their people. And, we probably can't be the home for all of them, but we probably can assist at least some of them in a humane and welcoming way.
Yeah. Moving forward, has anyone presented any legislation that could kind of move the ball forward to come up with some kind of immigration policy on the southern border?
I have not seen any good comprehensive policies in recent years. This issue has continued to stymie Congress. They don't seem to be able to get together and agree on anything. There were some proposals maybe 2 decades ago where there were some possibilities of shorter term visas that would allow people to come work for a period of time and then they would have to go home. But if they followed the rules, they could potentially come back again. And in my view, that wasn't a bad solution because that would allow them to maintain their ties with their home country, their family there, but it would get them out of whatever bad situation they were in, at least for a few years. And then long term, there might have been some options for them to stay permanently, again, if they followed the rules and were, showed themselves to be good citizens. So there have been proposals in the past, but as of right now, I don't think there's any serious proposals like that on the table.
Yeah, and I guess this whole idea, and as we mentioned earlier about Governor DeSantis, Governor Abbott, I think just this week, bust 50 asylum or 50 immigrants in a bus and unloaded them off at the vice president's residence,
Yeah.
just to kind of show. I mean, so I mean, is that a legal action to do? I mean, even from that standpoint?
Whether it is legal, as I said, probably depends on how it is done, right? Were they understanding and agreeing to what was happening, or were they told misinformation about where they were going or why they were going there? I understand that the District of Columbia has received, quite a few of these busloads of people, and they have tried to activate their support system to help provide for them. But without that coordination, you don't know when they're coming or how many there are, and to find, housing and other resources on short notice is very, very difficult. So it's certainly not a good way to do things.
Yeah, it seems like even the governors are not talking. I mean, you've got, red and blue states, and you've got the governors who don't even bother to cooperate or to talk to each other. So there's, right now it seems like just a lot of political posturing and not a whole lot of cooperation.
Yes, I would agree that they would do much better if they would talk to one another and come to some kind of mutually acceptable solution, both the states talking to each other and the states talking to the federal government. There are solutions to these problems, but it's going to take some political will to get there and less rhetoric.
Yeah. I mean, you've advised a lot of people on immigration law. I mean, if you had a magic wand, what would some things that you would recommend or suggest?
Well, I think I'd start by funding our system. We have a terrible backlog of cases in the system. And that means that when people come, it takes a long time to process them. That means that we are supporting them for longer because they're waiting for their cases to be heard and they may not have the ability to work in the meantime. If we could actually have sufficient attorneys and judges and we could process people expeditiously, we could make those kind of decisions, and then we wouldn't have to be supporting people for a long period of time. We've been hearing lots about how many jobs we have in this country that are open, employers who need workers. It would seem that many of these immigrants come with skills and a great desire to work. It would be nice if we could put them to work, and fill some of those positions that are open, and do that lawfully in a way that benefits our economy, benefits the workers, benefits the employers, all of that. So if we could have those kinds of conversations and solutions, I think that could really go a long way. And, we started talking early in this conversation about the DACA recipients, and all of these young people that are brought here by their parents. They didn't have a choice about coming here, and now they're here and they're often in a legal limbo, and we really need to do something for these young people who are in a situation that was not of their own making, but they want to be here, they want to be good and productive citizens in the United States, and they really deserve that chance.
All right, very good. All right, Cindy Bies, thanks for talking with me today. And of course, immigration, it's an ongoing topic. It's been going on for decades, so lots to talk about.
Yeah, there is. Thanks so much for talking with me too.